couple of years ago, Dr. Bravo, who's a fellow emergency physician who's on our board of directors for disclosureproject.org and ccity.org, and I went to a foreign country, that's all I can say, and I was the third person to ever handle this dead, deceased extraterrestrial being. Now, it is a physical specimen. We're told it's ET. That's not yet been proven. It's a possibility we can include this in this film. It's going to be, unfortunately, very costly to do the genetic testing, the MRI scans, the geneticist review, our anthropological reviews, and all of this. It has to be done to vet and check this out thoroughly. At this point, the institute that has this little being, which has been dead for an undetermined amount of time, is willing to cooperate. What people have to understand is that I have held it, I've examined it, I've looked at the x-rays of it. It is not a plaster of Paris hoax. It is not any birth defect that I know of, although we're having some geneticists review it. It most certainly is not a predecessor of Homo sapiens, in other words, a hominid like Lucy or one of these ancient ones, because it's a fairly fresh body. It's got some connective tissue still on it. It's mostly skeletal, but there is some fascia, we call it, and connective tissue and neural tissue in the skull and the brain. I've examined it very thoroughly. There's no question that it's an actual biological specimen. If it is what we think it is, it would be dispositive and explosive. So if people want to help support our being able to check this out further, they can also help us at Sirius.neverendinglife.com, because what Dr. Bravo and I want to do is a full scientific examination, including various scientific scanning, MRIs, possibly radioisotopes and carbon dating, although that's problematic because we don't want to damage the creature by taking large samples. We want to be able also to do a full genetic comparison to Homo sapiens, as well as any other known existing hominids that may be in archaeological or anthropological databases. So this is a substantial undertaking. One person wrote to my blog and said, boy, do you really want to try to do that on top of everything else you're doing between now and December to get this film completed? But I said, this is like the pearl of great price. This one you don't throw away. You don't toss this one back into the ocean. So that is something we're trying to pursue. At this point, we cannot reach any firm conclusions, except I can say dispositively that it is not a hoax in terms of being a biological specimen. It is definitely a biological specimen. It is definitely a head, 2 arms, 2 legs, and it doesn't look like anything human. So, and it's not just like a skull that may or may not be a deformed human skull like some of the things that you've seen on the internet. This is an entire body. So, we're trying to pursue this. Obviously, the security concerns and the scientific issues around this are mind-boggling. The only reason I'm mentioning it is, number one, we're going to need funding support to do the proper testing. Number two, the more that people know we're even in pursuing this, it creates a zone of protection around us, because paradoxically, the more the people who know what we're doing, the more protected we are. A lot of people couldn't understand when I was doing Disclosure Project 10 years ago why I started talking about the 115 or so top secret people that we had that we were interviewing. I said it's because you can't buy the kind of protection that millions of people knowing what you're doing can give you, because these classified and rather shadowy projects do not want to step into a billion-watt spotlight. So on the one hand, we have to do this rather discreetly and carefully at the request of the people who have this specimen. On the other hand, I'm loath to do it in secrecy because I think it's highly risky. So that's why we're talking about it today. So those of you who kind of read between the lines of what I'm telling you, this is something that we want to do in the next, probably in the next 60 days. So time is of the essence. Unfortunately, the genetic testing on this could take some time, and for this data to make its way into this historic film, which you can see a description of at Sirius.neverendinglife.com, that's going to require some type of real planning, and we may have to actually, unfortunately, to do a global search of a proper institute that can do this in a timely fashion, because it's a serious amount of scientific testing that has to be done. But at any rate, we are pursuing it. I have green-lighted that effort. I talk about it on my blog, which is Dr. Greer's blog.disclosureproject.org, and there's a link to it from our sites. So I just wanted to give people a heads up about this. This is kind of late-breaking news, and Dr. Bravo is heading up the coordination of this scientific team. Dr. Ted Loader would also be helping us, who's our science advisor, who's Professor Emeritus, University of New Hampshire, and there's some other scientists we're working with who wish to remain anonymous at this point. But if anybody listening can help us with this, then let us know. And if you can help with the support of creating this film, we have enough to do sort of the rudimentary of a feature film, but this is not a $5 million film budget. It's, it's a couple $100,000. But, thanks to everyone who contributed. But if we could get some more funding, we could do a better film and include more evidence and do more witness interviews and with military and other people who are coming forward. There's a new CIA witness who's come forward, many people have heard about, who's confirmed the Roswell event. So we're wanting to include as many things as possible. Each thing we want to add, of course, costs funds to go and film and travel, and there's just a lot of out-of-pocket expenses with doing a film like this. So any support that anyone can give us who's listening, we do appreciate it. And for those of you who have already supported what we're doing with this project, I want to thank all of you sincerely, because it's helped us to be able to greenlight the initial budget for the production company and the filmmaker to go forward, and we're off and running. So it's a very, very exciting time. Well, and Diane and Marilyn, you can just confirm that you've actually seen photos of me with this little specimen.
Yes, we've seen photos, and they're absolutely amazing, and there's no question about it. In the photos, this looks like an absolute biological being of some kind, and it is not human.
Yeah. There's no mistaking the pictures. It is definitely not human, and it's very real, and we both attest to that completely.
And I can tell you, having examined it and held it, of course I did so carefully with gloves on and whatnot, and examined the x-rays. In fact, Marilyn and Diane have seen me with the x-rays and with the being itself. But,
yes.
This is definitely a biological. This is not like, is it the alien autopsy thing? Is it a model? Is it a hoax? Is it this? I mean, the question is, what is it? It has gone through some review processes at a university, ruling out any existing known hominids. Hominids, by the way, are the predecessors to Homo sapiens, of course, on the evolutionary tree. But, the question then becomes, could it be some bizarre defect of a known human congenital birth defect? Could it be? We have to do a thorough examination, and this, of course, I mean, if NASA had a sample like this, they'd probably spend $200 or $300 million on it. So we're going to try to do it with what we can get, but it just the out-of-pocket to do the MRIs, the other scientific testing, the genetic testing, is going to be substantial. I'll just tell you, we're still in the process of putting together a budget for that. But anyone who can help with that, we appreciate it, because this is something that is
people need to understand this could be some of the most pinpointed confirming evidence that we have on the
Yes, I mean, short of going to an underground base at Fort Huachuca or so-called 51 or something, and dragging a body out of the chambers there that they've shot down and killed. Yes, and so this is not something that this is not an opportunity that comes along every minute. And I've been doing this for 22 years, and I can tell you I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah.